Hello everyone. Farah Nazir from the Department of Education, Hazara University, Mansehra is here. Today I'm going to discuss how to observe the assessment practices in the classroom. So let's begin. This is the overview of today's presentation. First, I'm going to discuss what is assessment and then the purpose of assessment, the guiding principles of assessment, then the types of assessment practices, and examples of classroom assessment techniques. So, what is assessment? Assessment is the process of gathering and discussing information from multiple and diverse sources in order to develop a deeper understanding of what students know, understand, and can do with their knowledge as a result of their educational experiences. So, assessment is basically the process that through which the teachers gathers data so that the teacher can use that data to make decisions regarding uh, students, whether the students in learning takes place, or what are the our teacher need to make some changes in the way the teacher is teaching, or blah blah blah. So this is a there are multiple ways in which the teacher can gather data, whether it can be like the teacher can observe the students and make anecdotal records, or the teacher use some other uh, formal type of source like using test and these stuff. So the process culminates when assessment results are used to improve subsequent learning. So the data from assessment, this is like interpreted, and then it is like used and to improve the students learning by making some change in the way the teacher is teaching, or using some extra other techniques to enhance the students learning. So assessment is the gathering of information about students learning, and there are multiple methods that can be used to assess students learning. Some of the examples of like using exams, quizzes, lab reports, homework assignments, research papers, semester projects, minute papers, informal ungraded presentations, class discussions, concept maps, and concept tests, and many more. The purpose of assessment. So the purpose of assessment is to guide instructional decision making, like where the teachers when the teachers assess students at the beginning of the lesson. So the teachers like make decisions regarding instruction, like at what level the student is and what type of instruction uh, the students needs, and to assist in the diagnosis of learning and performance problems. So if the assessments can be used to diagnose the problem in students learning, that what are the issues that hinder students learning, to promote self-regulation. So one of the purpose of assessment is uh, to promote the self-regulation, that the teacher uh, teacher can self-monitor and teacher can assess his or her own performance. So, and the one of the other purposes is to determine what students have learned, that at the end of the lesson or during the lesson the teacher can use assessments to determine whether the students are learning something or they need some other instructions. So guiding principles of assessment. So assess what you value. How you assess directly impacts the way your student will allocate time and learning energy. So it is the like the most important aspect that the what what's the purpose of what is the like goal of assessment, and what the teacher value, like whether what the teacher want to assess directly impacts that the what the students put their energies on. Like if the teacher want to assess uh, rote memorization, so the teacher will the student will putting their energy on that. If the teacher want to assess their creativity, so the students will be more like focusing on the uh, being more creative and the this aspect. So one of the other guiding principle is the getting feedback early and often, that the teacher need to provide feedback uh, at the beginning, in the beginning of the process, so that the students like can know that at what stage level they are and how they can improve. So these are the two guiding principles. So next is the attributes of effective assessment. So the most effective assessment have some or all of the following characteristics. The it is authentic, real world. It means like that the assessment, it is like related to the task, and it is authentic, like it is valid. For example, if the teacher is and is the for example, if the teacher is assessing some learning but not using the right type of tool, so it's like not the authentic assessment. Then the assessment needs to be fair and challenging, and means that all the students need to be assessed on the kind of the criteria that there should be fairness and challenging, that the assessment tools that the teacher is using challenge the individual. So and the assessment need to be consistent with course goals and a learning experience, and in and of themselves, like that the assessment that is like carried out, that need to be like a, in line with the lessons, goals or outcomes. So next is the types of assessments. So there are like these important types of assessment: diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment. So the diagnostic assessment is to diagnose the problem or issue. So it is often undertaken at the beginning of a unit or of study. So the purpose is to assess the skills, abilities, interest, experiences, levels of achievement or difficulties of individual student or a whole class. So it can involve formal measurement, like for example using IQ or aptitude test, fitness test, and the purpose is to establish a starting point or baseline. So there can be informal measurements using, for example, observation, discussions, questioning. From that the teacher can like identify or diagnose that at what level students are and what type of instruction they need uh, for their effective learning to be carried out. So diagnostic assessment informs programming and planning, and learning and teaching methods used, as well as assessment choices. Next is the formative assessment. So, formative assessment is the assessment that is carried out during the process. So, it is the practice of building a cumulative record of students' achievement, usually takes place during day-to-day learning experiences. So when the teacher assesses the student during the learning process, so it is the formative assessment. So it involves ongoing informal observation throughout the term, course, semester, or unit of day. So formal assessment is used to monitor students' ongoing progress and to provide immediate and meaningful feedback. So, it is carried out to monitor students' learning during the process. So, the teacher can like provide feedback to students if there is something wrong or students need a further instruction or any other remedies. So, this is the main purpose of the formative assessment. It assists teachers in modifying or extending their programs or adapting their learning and teaching methods. So based on the like feedback, teachers can like uh, change their instructional methodologies or use some additional other methodologies or strategies to enhance students' learning. So the third one is the summative assessment. So summative assessment assist the teachers to make judgments about student achievement at certain relevant points in the learning process or unit of study. So is the formative assessment is during the process, so summative assessment is the after the process. So it is used to make judgments about the student's achievement. So the after the process can be a after a after the one class period or after a lesson has been completed, a unit has been completed, or at the end of the course, project, semester, unit, or year, whatever. So it can be used formally to measure the level of achievement of learning outcomes, like that the formal ways, for example, using test, lab assignments, projects, presentations, and it can be used to judge program like teaching and our unit of study effectiveness. So summative assessment can both be formal and it can be like it can also assess the teachers like uh, evaluate his or her own uh, teaching. So there are like two ways to carry out assessment. One is the formal and the other is the informal. So the informal assessment involves systematically observing and monitoring students during in-class learning and teaching experiences, like interacting with students to gain a deeper knowledge of what they know, understand and can do, circulating the classroom and posing questions, guiding investigations, motivating and quizzing students. So these are the informal strategies. So and providing opportunities for students to present or report upon their learning and teaching experiences, collecting, analyzing, and providing feedback on in and out of classwork samples. For example, how their group work projects are progressing. So these are the example of the informal assessments. So formal assessment involves the use of specific assessment strategies to determine the degree to which students have achieved the learning outcomes. So, assessment strategies includes essays, exams, reports, projects, presentations, performance performances, laboratories or workshops, resource development, artwork, creative design tasks, quizzes and tests, journal writing, and portfolios development. So, and formal assessment can be individual and are collaborative tasks that usually attract a mark, like that need to be that need to be evaluated. So, examples of classroom assessment techniques: Angelo and Cross include the following categories in their classroom assessment techniques, like that the categories are assessing the prior knowledge, assessing knowledge and understanding, assessing if there are any misconceptions, and skills in problem solving, skills in application, synthesis and creative writing, and assessing teachers' own instruction. So, assessing prior knowledge. So, the technique to assess prior knowledge is to pose an open-ended questions to the students. So, open-ended questions are those questions that have multiple uh, answers. Like there's no one correct answer. There can be multiple point of views, and give them, and the teacher pose a question, open-ended questions, and then give students a few minutes to jot down their answers alone or in small groups. So then the teacher need to pool their knowledge, write the question on the board, and ask each student or group to contribute one of their answers until they run out of information to contribute. So not only will the teacher know how much they know, but at the end of the activity, they will all know the same information. So if the teacher want to assess the prior knowledge, like by asking students to note down what they know, and then asking each students to describe what he knows, and noting down on the whiteboard, the teacher the all the other students will be reading that content, and at the end they will have the same information. So for the sample question can be the example is suppose you are considering buying a two-story house with a basement in San Francisco. What factors like geological and otherwise should you consider? So this is an open-ended question that is asking that the what are the factors you will consider in buying a two-story house. So it this type of questions generate multiple responses. So next is assessing understanding. So the strategy that the technique can be used is the minute paper. So it works like that have your student write their answers to one of the following questions. What was the most important thing you learned during class today? What important question remains unanswered? What was the muddiest point remaining at the end of today's class? So these questions can give the teachers and the idea that what did the students learn today? What was the questions that the teacher uh, didn't answer, and what are the questions that remained in students' mind regarding the content? And the muddiest points means what percentage of mud was due to unclear presentation by instructors, lack of opportunity to ask questions, lack of participation in class discussion, and the lack of prior preparation. So muddiest point means like the unclear points, and what are the like the reasons that the muddiest points was there. The other is to check the misconception. So to assess the prevalence of misconceptions, you can take an informal class poll by proposing a statement and asking your students how strongly they agree or disagree. So to check misconception, teacher can ask a question, and then the teacher can ask the students like whether they are in agreement or in disagreement with this statement, and then the teacher can know that if the students have some misconception, the teacher can clarify the point, and in that way the teacher can assess the students misconceptions. So the next is assessing skills in application and performance. The strategy uses the application cards. After students have heard, read, or discussed an important principle, generalization, theory, or procedure, hand out an index card and ask them to write down at least one real world application for what they have just learned. So this is also an and like interesting activity or strategy that a teacher can use, like after teaching the lesson, or like teaching some theory or something, the teacher can ask the students like what's the real world application, or how you will use this concept, or how it can be used. So in that way the teacher will have data regarding the applicability, that how the student will use that knowledge. The next is assessing skill and synthesis and creative thinking. So the invented dialogues. So this is like assessing the creative thinking of students. So one example can be the example from fine arts, Shakespeare on film. Students create a short dialogue between William Shakespeare and Orson Welles, in which the two compare notes on the stagings of Othello. So there can be these assessing skill and creative thinking can be used in the other subjects as well. Like teacher can ask the students like based on the science science content or the social studies, that if that event happened in a history, so in the future how these type of events uh, what can be done that these type of events can shouldn't be repeated, or so these type of things can like uh, make students to think creatively. So assessing instruction, that the teacher can also assess his or her own instruction. So one technique can be like students small group evaluation. A trained consultant interviews the students during the last 20 minutes of class and anonymously records the feedback to the following questions: what is going well in this class, what is helping you learn, what could use improvement, and what specific suggestions would you make for change, and what can you a student do to make this course even more successful. So the data on these questions give the can give the teachers uh, information about uh, his instruction, that whether what's going well and how the teacher can make further improvement. So one other assessment, teacher uh, own instruction assessment, is classroom or videotape observation. Ask a colleague or consultant from the teaching center to observe your class and share ideas about teaching. Have your class videotaped so you can see yourself in action. This works especially well when you are also view the tape with a colleague or consultant. Like teacher can video record mm, his or her teaching session and then view that recorded session with a colleague or consultant and see that what's going well and where the teacher needs improvement. So today we discussed like what's assessment, and then the purpose of assessment, then the attributes of assessment, and then the types of assessment, and some examples related to assessment techniques in the classroom. So during your classroom observation, uh, you need to use those aspects like the strategies that I discussed, like the techniques. You need to see that what type of strategies our teacher is using, and whether the teacher is using at the beginning of the lesson, during the lesson, and at the end of the lesson. So how frequently the teacher is using. So you will be able to like observe the assessment practices in the classroom. So these are the references. So this content is from the classroom assessment techniques, a handbook for college teachers, and then the other is the muddiest point in the lectures as a feedback device, and there are two other websites. So thank you. Hope you will understand the content described in this presentation.